Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I'm in between uh, reps or sets of squats and stuff like that with my little 30-pound weight. So figured I'd come here and let y'all know that Alex Lynn re-signed with the Kings. Don't really know the framework on it, but I think he's a good center to have for the Sacramento Kings in their role. Of course, they have plenty of players in the center position. Of course, they just picked one up from overseas. I'm not sure of his name, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. They moved on from Rashawn Holmes. Uh, Someone else signed with the Kings. Yeah, one of their centers also signed with the Kings. So they have an even bigger role, I think, for a guy like Alex Lynn, um, which should be a pretty good thing. You know, he's done good things with the minutes there. He's done good things with the minutes everywhere he's really gone. So, you know, you're not expecting him to come and be a star or nothing, but he does have a good motor and will help your team. So that's one thing that's out there. And since there's very little news in the NBA, it isn't a whole lot to talk about. People are talking about people changing numbers and still speculating about Dame, talking about how they don't want to talk about Dame, and all kinds of other stuff like that right now. It's the dog days in the NBA. It's nothing for you right now, but you know, of course, I'm going to continue to come here and just give you whatever's in my head, and if it's there, um, then you have it. So for me right now, I really don't have much in regards to the NBA, but I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, there will be more for us to consider. Um, just simply because there's always something that will prompt up on one of these content pieces that I'm looking at that often prompts me into a rabbit hole that it opens up my head into all different types of things in regards to the league. So you guys know how that goes. If you follow me, this is nothing new. And I got so much content back there that you all can check out as well that I always encourage others to see. But yeah, if anything, that's pretty much it. Alex Lynn went back to the Kings. I haven't heard anything else as well, other than that, rather. Um, the Dame Lillard watch is pretty much the same as it's been. All of the conversations I had to say about that, I think, are still in place. Wouldn't be much to add to that. You just want to see him go to a place that has value attached to it already there, so he's not so much behind the eight ball, you know. And that's really what I see there. It's like they're going to be moving off of hopes and wishes, along with Bam Adebayo, uh, you know, Jimmy Butler, if they're able to keep him, and um, you know, Dame Lillard and whatever else they can bring back in the trade. That would be pretty much what they're working with. And maybe they get lucky and sign Christian Wood and maybe PJ Washington for like pennies on the dollar or something, give themselves some depth. That would be an ideal situation. But that's like best case scenario for the Heat. And I'm listening to people say, you know, the Heat haven't been respected and people don't respect the Heat. It's like, it's not even about that. They have an entirely different team this year that's going to be coming into this league. It's not the same Heat that they've had over the last 5-6 years. Those key pieces that they've had that have been playing big roles, a good portion of the ones that are main are gone. So it's like, what am I respecting? Just the overall culture? Am I respecting the system itself? Okay, that's already in place. But who's going to play those roles? Who do they have that can get them back to the Eastern Conference Finals where they ultimately always are? And you tell me Jimmy and Bam's, that's cool. All right, that's two people. I need like a 16-man roster. What else do we have? You got Kyle Lowry's contract coming back. I'd imagine he's going to be there. Unless they decide to trade it as it's expiring. I think this is the final year on it. That'd probably be a good idea, given the fact that they can use the bodies. Look at a guy like Duncan Robinson. His values increased over the last couple years since his contract has been so undesirable. He played very well these last couple years in the playoffs, or rather in this last playoff run specifically. Maybe there'd be a team that'd be willing to pay for that shooter. You know what I mean? He has a specific skill that I think can be very, very useful in this league. And the only problem with him is he's just been on too much of a contract for everyone to want to take on. But that contract has matured quite a bit. You don't think Charlotte would be willing to swap that thing for Gordon Hayward or something? Maybe you can, I don't know. I mean, there are things you can do if you're the Miami Heat that can add a little strength to your team that would ultimately give me something to respect other than just the overall structure of your core and your coach. That ain't enough. He has to have players. You know what I mean? They have to have teammates. They have to have people that can do things for them outside of what it is that they do so that they can be successful. If you're going to bring Dame Lillard to him, all right, that's another superstar. Great. But what are we going to do when one of these people get hurt? What happens if the team suddenly just doesn't click like it's supposed to? Who's going to make up for that on that bench? Where's your spark coming from? And those are the things that we ask. And I don't think they have an answer for that. And I think the media would let you think that there don't need to be an answer for that. The Heat emblem and the colors and the overall past of the Heat is supposed to carry them to victories today, just like they do with my team, the Lakers. That's how they operate. No matter who's in the jersey, we're supposed to be the best team or what have you. And it's like, that's what they're trying to do to the Heat. I think it's a formula to set you up for failure, if you ask me. Man, I wouldn't trust it if I were a Heat fan. So that's what I have to say about that. I think this is the same opinion I have about them acquiring Dame is the similar opinion I had to the Knicks acquiring Donovan Mitchell. If it's going to cost too much to do and you're not going to be good enough when you do it, is it really worth it? The Donovan Mitchell thing would have gave up equity for years and years and years for the Knicks, just so they can bring themselves a star that would have left them with a backcourt that was likely too small to do anything. And so that's really what it came down to for me. It's like, nah, you don't give away future to experiment so that you can satisfy today's need for a superstar. Nah, what you want to do is make sure that you keep that flexibility so that whatever opportunities come about, you can always be a player in receiving the best from whatever trade packages someone would want. You could give one of the best trade packages. That's what any team should want at this point, is flexibility. But they want to give up that flexibility for an opportunity to be successful in some random year, which this happens to be. And I just don't think that's the way to look at running a basketball team. And so I look at the Miami Heat and I say, you have no foundation. The contracts you've had have been bad. You haven't gone out of your way to develop any talent or anything, so you're not necessarily finding all the best young guys. Why are you trying to forego more of what little you have to bring back an aging piece that likely is going to retire in your uniform if it goes the way it's supposed to? If he retires in your uniform, what are you getting out of that? I mean, you're just going to be even worse going forward. Hopefully you can have some luck in the lottery. You can see how that tumbles forward. Maybe you have good luck. Maybe you're more like the Wizards and Knicks. Detroit, you don't want to find out if you're not going to be one of those teams, or if you are going to be one of those teams that doesn't have good luck in the lottery, especially when you have so much of a disadvantage that you're building from at that point. Remember the Lakers? Have you not been watching what we've been going through? And it's like teams like the Clippers and the Heat just continue to double down on wanting superstars who are actually, honestly, overworked players who have long been overpaid in a lot of cases, man. And it's not the way forward. It's the way to win now. But after that, you're hoping another free agent just happens to choose you, when in all reality, those free agents will have better choices based on the fact that other teams didn't have that problem. Now, you could take advantage of the locale if you're the Clippers or the Heat, and I think that's what they're banking on. It's like guys are going to want to be here regardless if it makes sense or not. Hence, Dame Lillard playing right into that formula, which is why I'm trying to be the great help for that. Just like, yo, you don't want to go to Miami? Because this gives them the excuse to keep doing things incorrectly because people keep choosing them when they are not doing things correctly. No, you don't want that. I put too much pressure on my team from within my channel, right, to do things correctly and develop talent and all that. We're supposed to be the number one draw. Everybody wants to superimpose players' bodies with our uniform on it. You know what I'm saying? It's like we could very well continue tumbling things down the road the wrong way, just be a little bit good enough and still get stars because y'all ain't wise enough to choose the teams that are actually doing things correctly. Stop this nonsense. This is why they don't do things correctly, because they don't freaking have to. The guys like Dame. No. Go to Utah. Go to San Antonio where they are doing things correctly. Go to these places like Boston and OKC that have the equity to pull it off, so that you can put more pressure on these big market teams to actually be better squads. Y'all want to keep going there, but you keep going there when it ain't no good. The Lakers had to go through that. Carmelo Anthony said, hell no. LaMarcus Archer said, hell no. And at that point, we knew we needed to do some things differently, because it wasn't going to be enough just being the Lakers getting whatever you want. No, you got to have a foundation. You got to have a good infrastructure. You got to have people in place that respect what it is that needs to be done and gets it done. We have that now. And that's why we have LeBron James and Anthony Davis not demanding out despite having a bunch of 23-year-olds to play with. It's because we've done things correctly, and you can see where the success and the path going forward is going to be more stars trying to take their place and take the opportunity that otherwise they have right now with the Lakers and a good foundation. They don't want to let that go, and that's why they haven't demanded out, in my humble opinion. If Dame wants to find himself in a situation like that, he needs to choose a team that has that infrastructure. Luckily enough, LeBron James was able to just wait it out. AD was able to wait it out so that we could build that infrastructure around him. They don't have that kind of time. Dame does not have that kind of time, man, to be waiting on the Miami Heat to build a structure. Most importantly, the only way I see them building that structure is trading him, as I've already said many times. So, I want to see these big market teams do things correctly, just like I want to see these small market teams like Portland do things correctly. Nobody should be given any passes in this league because it ultimately makes for a bad league when they do things incorrectly. Now, there are ways to do things unorthodox, like the Suns are doing, because you can see as long as they continue to find talent in discounted areas, they can manage their cap. You know what I mean? And if they're willing to play the tax, they can get it done. But is that what Miami's going to do? Is that their plan? Because last I checked, they didn't have no Duncan Robinson contracts. They didn't have no Kyle Lowry. They didn't have some of the issues that the Miami Heat have. The Phoenix Suns had some issues, but they also have the ability to hold on to a player like Devin Booker, who's got a future ahead. Do we see the same for Bam in Miami? Do we see the same for an older guy like Jimmy Butler? Do you see the same for Dame Lillard? It's just a little different, man. It's a little different. You guys are a little older and a little less valuable in some cases. You consider what its return for KD can get you. Obviously, Bradley Beal's value is not very high given the fact that no trade clause, but I just don't think Miami's in a position to do what Phoenix is doing and feel as good about it with Dame's contract. I just don't think so. I don't think so. And I think they're going about it in a way that's going to put them in a position to maybe be bad for a very long time if they don't get this right. So while it looks like they're going to be able to settle for a lesser deal to get Dame's contract, because it doesn't look like the Blazers are going to be able to get anything for Dame that they want at all. So they're probably going to have to settle for that package. It'll probably be the best one they get. And if they decide not to trade Dame, then they're stuck with a player that's probably not going to fit. First of all, not going to fit one of those two. And second of all, it forces other aspects of their roster to go without because of Dame's presence being on the roster, with all of this not being about him anymore. So it's almost like what I view, Chris Paul's contract in Golden State, same thing. It's like, why is that even here? We need other stuff. And so that's what it becomes a situation for the Portland Trailblazers. And as we've said, one of the solutions they have is to try to trade Scoot. But even then, I don't know that depending on what you get back, you feel any good about it. So it's looking like Dame will get his way. He'll end up in Miami. And it looks like Portland's going to have to settle for something less than what they want or suffer a lockout type situation for their team. That ain't going to make them good enough to do anything, and it ain't going to put Scoot in a position to really develop like you want him to develop as your leading guard. So I think they win a couple extra games if they keep Dame on the team and do this. I think they're going to probably win more depending on what they get back, which doesn't look like a lot. But ultimately, it's not going to be comfortable there. Nobody's going to be too thrilled to be a Portland Trailblazer if they don't make this trade and make it good. So that's the reality of it, man. The lockout possibility is there, but I think it's more likely that Dame gets what he wants, because I think there's fan pressure on the Blazers to do right by Dame. Strangely enough, and I think it's strange because I think if they're really fans and they want their team to get the best return, but a lot of people don't think like that. They think more so about what this has always been about, what they've been taught to think this is about, which is the loyalty to Dame. That's been the whole brand of the Blazers. Whether we win or lose, it's Dame time, and they've had their heart broke with players retiring early with injury and stuff like that, to where they kind of have a sentimental connection to their fans and maybe other teams don't have when they aren't winning. And so if that's some context that I'm to absorb, then I think it's probably in the Blazers' best interest to trade Dame to Miami so that they can keep those fans happy, ultimately. But the team ain't going to be no good, and that's the point. When this Dame stuff gets to where it's going, and as I said, I've already mentioned this, but when Dame gets to Miami and it doesn't go the way it's supposed to, it ain't going to feel good to the Blazers watching him run around not be happy out there. Not on their team either, probably get traded to a third team somewhere down the road, and it ain't going to be the Blazers. It's just going to be a lot of stuff that ain't going to be as simple as Dame gets where he wants to go, and we've done enough. It's still going to be playing itself out in such a way that the Blazer fans are going to have to watch it and they're not going to be better for it if the return again isn't good. So, um, I think that's what it happens when you have a player who's as good as Dame sign a contract that is as bad as that and the demand's out. That is like a bad trio of circumstances there. And at his age, that makes it even much worse, much worse. So that's what I gotta say about that, man. I just hope that everybody can, who is a free agent at the moment, is able to find a team in the process of this. That's what I'm hopeful for. And that the market can continue to move normally. Because last year's KD trade demand and Rudy Gobert trade made for a very tough summer for a lot of teams. And, you know, it gave us a lot of content to talk about and speculate about, just like this does. But it really was something that hurt the Lakers specifically, because we couldn't complete our team. Couldn't make the trade we needed at a price that was decent. So we started the team pretty bad. So started the season pretty bad with a team that wasn't constructed properly, rather. So we know that can happen to some other teams here as well. And so hopefully they can get to a conclusion there. Sacrifice a little bit of what's in the trade, maybe for the betterment of the market itself. I think the market will be, well, not the market, but the field will be pleased with that. So that's a thought. Something in Boston happened. I know Jordan Walsh is going crazy. He's looking like a steal for them. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. I don't know why, but it's almost like Jordan Walsh is a player who you knew was going to play well. Like, you saw him in college look good, and you saw that his skills were translatable to the league. And if he were to get into a role like what Boston has in that summer league, which is showcasing him, where he's the best guy, then he's just going to take over. He has the size, he has the skill set. He's not extremely gifted, but he has that lead man mentality. And so I think he's going to turn into a serious player for the Boston Celtics. I look at the removal of Grant Williams as an opportunity for Jordan Walsh to step in and take on that role. I don't think he's the same player. I don't know that he defends or anything. I don't know. But what I can say is the minutes are there for him to push forward into the power forward, small forward backup role. And as he does, I think they got an aggressive player there. I think they got a very aggressive player who's going to be a legitimate piece for them in their regular rotation, depending on how well he shoots the three, because Mazzulla's going to want that three ball flying. But I think the Boston Celtics, if they want to see success, should probably incorporate some things into that offense that makes them a bit less predictable from behind the arc. Volume three-point shooting, I think, only works when you have elite three-point shooters, and I don't know that the Boston Celtics really had that. I'm still curious to see what happens with Jaylen Brown, as he hasn't signed that extension yet, and I do think that's a little strange. That tells me that he's probably traded. I know people said, oh, he's not going to be traded. I'm telling you, if I'm trying to start something like what they have over there, which is volume three-point shooting in Boston, they want to shoot probably 53s a game. Jaylen Brown is not who needs to be taking the second most of my cap. And I already traded away Marcus Smart, and I know that's the main reason why. I know it is, because he doesn't shoot the three very well. And you have him shooting 6 and 7 threes a night, he's gonna brick a lot of them. And it's gonna make for a bad offense. I know it. So it's one of those situations where I think the Boston Celtics want another lethal shooter. And if they're gonna pay $260 million to somebody, that's who's gonna likely be the guy they give it to. Not Jaylen Brown, who's more drive based, who's gonna put pressure on the rim, who has more combo things to him, but has some key flaws that ultimately make it so that his strengths can be attacked. He doesn't dribble very well, so it's like he's an elite player, but his specific weakness makes for a very specific problem for a Boston team that's trying to do a specific thing. And him being a number 2 star just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, especially at the price that he's now demanding. It does not make sense. I don't think he's a $206, $209 million guy, even though I've seen other guys get that contract to where you have to give it to him. It makes sense to keep that making sense around him, across the field for what he's accomplished, all of that. But he's always been a number 2, and I've watched his development. He's a fantastic star, but I just don't think that he's built himself up to where I want to give him that and think I'm going to be very successful. I just don't think so. I really don't think so. As many times I've been to the finals or Eastern Conference, I just don't think that his piece should be given that much of the cap when you're going to need so much else. And so that's what it comes down to. I'm moving him. probably to the Blazers, because I think that would be an excellent acquisition for them. I would love to take back Dame Lillard. You know what I'm saying? If I'm the Boston Celtics, that's probably what I'm trying to do. Because I can definitely see Dame Lillard attempting 7-8 threes a night in a system that's meant to shoot the 3-point shot. It's only about 5 or 6 players I want more so in that situation than Dame. So he needs to be in Boston just for the stuff, for everything that has to do with winning a championship and shooting the basketball. And I'm a Laker fan, blah, blah, blah. You guys know I don't love the Celtics, blah, blah, blah. All of that is cool. But at the end of the day, we're just looking at it from an objective basketball standpoint. I would much rather Dame be in Boston than Miami if I want him to win a championship. It just is what it is. I don't think the Boston Celtics are a championship contender right now. I do not. But if you put Dame Lillard in that situation with Porzingis, Jason Tatum, I think that trio is serious. They're serious, and they're going to shoot the three a lot, and they're going to hit it a lot. And with guys like Jordan Walsh in place, who's also going to be very aggressive, various other guys that they're going to have on that bench, I think the Boston Celtics can be a real legitimate championship contender if they were to try to get Dame Lillard. And I don't think that's news to anybody. I think even casuals will tell you they're going to be a contender if they get Dame Lillard. But I think that's something Dame Lillard should not be closed to. I know living in Boston is not for everyone, but neither is living in Portland. You've been there for, how long? So it's not going to be that much different. They're going to love you there. They're going to welcome you there, and you're going to be one of the greats who've played a Boston Celtic uniform, if you can win a championship in a Boston Celtic uniform. So, like I said, I don't think he should want that necessarily as his first choice, because there are some other situations too. But I do think that when you talk about going to a prestigious championship organization, it worked for KG. You know what I'm saying? He went there after having a full career basically in Minnesota that didn't go nowhere. And what happened? He won an NBA championship and went down as one of the Boston Celtics great with his number in the rafters. So, again, Laker fan here, I'll be perfectly happy if this does not take place. Much more happy if this does not take place. But it's not about what I want. It's about what makes sense and what other people should want and what paths they should want in the NBA. And if I'm him, Boston's not off of the list. They're not off of it. But there are some teams that, if you've heard me say, I think he should have on it as well. I do believe the Utah Jazz probably should be on that list, even though Keontae George at this point makes me want to kind of keep him in that point guard position. He's almost like a scoop in my mind in a way. I don't really even want to toy with his upside. So I probably wouldn't bring in nobody like that. I keep Colin Sexton and THT in place for my point guard position if I'm the Utah Jazz as of this point. And y'all know that's a far cry from what I was screaming during the draft. But Keontae George is a lot different than what I thought, and I believe in him very much so. So I'm not playing around with his production or upbringing, or however you say that, his development. I think another player that the Boston Celtics should seriously be targeting, since they let Marcus Smart go, is Cason Wallace over in OKC. And I'm not saying OKC has any interest in letting go of Cason Wallace. It looks like they're very much intent on keeping a very deep team. But I don't give a damn about OKC and what they want, because OKC is being greedy and they're hoarding talent that they can't properly put in positions to do what it is they're supposed to do, just so they can be good. And while depth is important, there's ways to build depth, and not putting leading guys in positions out the gate to start their career to be on your bench. That's bullcrap. And I think it's wrong, to be honest with you. So that's why I'm like, somebody needs to remove that player from that situation and get him in a situation where he at least has some chance to someday be a starter. Because with J-Dub, Giddey, and SGA in place, that is not possible. He's going to be a career backup, whether he's good enough to be something better or not. And that, my friends, is some bullcrap. So get Cason Wallace out of there. And I think if he were to go to Boston, he would slip right in and be a fantastic starting point guard for them, or at least backup for now, with the intentions of probably taking that from Malcolm Brogdon, of whom they're trying to move anyway. But they can't move because of the elbow or something. It looks like it's going to be a big problem for him, which, if you sign up for Malcolm Brogdon, injuries are going to be what you're signing up for. So that's just who he is. That's what it's been the whole time. And it's unfortunate. He's a hell of a player, but you definitely want somebody in place ahead of him. Peyton Pritchard's somebody I like a lot, but he also could use a change of scenery. I think he also fits that Missoula ball very well, since he shoots the long ball three rather well. So I think that's something to consider as well. I think of a guy like Anthony Simons, since we're talking about the Portland Trailblazer, he also fits this role very well in Boston. Missoula ball, three, shoot. That's what it's all about. And so you put Anthony Simons in that role, that's exactly who he is. Exactly who he is. And last but not least, Tyler Hero. Guy that's going to likely be moved in a trade here and there. Boston is a good spot for him to be who he is, to play in a system that ultimately would fit his game. And, you know, we ain't talking a lot about who can go where, but Tyler Hero in Boston is something that just popped up in my head that I don't think is all that bad. But they want to play it. They want to pay Jaylen Brown. So, you know, obviously Jaylen Brown's a bigger player, a better player in my mind than Tyler Hero. But we're talking about different pieces that fit a specific role. And because Jaylen Brown's better, you could probably take back Tyler Hero and something else. Now, if I'm Boston, salute Duncan Robinson. I know it would be his dream to be a Boston Celtic, but I don't want that contract. If he's gonna come to Boston, it's gonna be after that contract matures. I'm not trading for that. But he would be an excellent player in that Missoula system. Obviously, he's a Boston Celtics fan from that area, well-known Boston Celtic fan. So moving him to the Boston Celtics probably make a lot of sense for his family and himself. So, you know, these are the type of things like, look, if you want to shoot the three, you can put together something to shoot the damn three. But if you just want to go forward with a team that shoots a three and you just have to move forward with Jaylen Brown, then your team don't actually make as much sense as it should and probably ain't going to win the championship doing it. This is what it is. Ain't nothing wrong with Jaylen Brown. It's just that piece is not what's best for you at $200 million. Hell no. You need to be getting multiple shooters at that price. $50 million guys that can all elite shoot and defend. That's the move. And then what you do makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I moved Jaylen Brown to Houston for Jabari Smith. Not to say that Houston should be willing to give away Jabari Smith, because they absolutely shouldn't. But, like, they should also want Jaylen Brown for what it is they're trying to do. You know, move on and upgrade from Green. Even though in real life, I don't actually want to do that at all. But I'm thinking like I'm Houston. I'm trying to do things the way they seem to be wanting to do it. And bringing myself Jaylen Brown makes sense. To me. Not maybe in place of Jabari Smith, but again, this is what's best for Boston and Jabari, of whom I think would murder in Missoula's system. You talk about a player that's built to shoot the three permanently forevermore, Jabari Smith. And he can do other things too, but I don't think there's going to be too many people that shoot the three ball better than him going forward. I don't think so. Not too many. He's just built to do it. And so these are the type of players I'll be like, yo, if I'm Boston, I know who I need. I know what I need. And Jaylen Brown happens to not be that. And with all respect to the Boston Celtic legend, Jaylen Brown, whose number probably will go up in the rafters. I'm not paying that salary for in this system. I'm not doing that. If you're serious about Missoula, you got to give him what he needs. That's basically what it comes down to. We learned that last season. So if you want to move on with a different coach, maybe you don't think the coach's system is important as the players. That makes sense to me. That's a conversation we're not having, but it makes sense to me. That probably makes more sense. You don't want to, you know what I mean? But we're not thinking like that. We're thinking, how can we make this system work that they're going to be using, that's going to be used next year? So, again, Porzingis is going to be fantastic in that system. I'm not worried about that at all. He shoots the three ball really well, as we know. That's not a thing. Jason Tatum, same thing. Jason Tatum, he's going to shoot the three. So it's just about what they want to do there. They would have loved to move on from Malcolm Brogdon, as we said, but I don't think he's going to be bad in that system. He shoots it pretty well too. So these are things that we're thinking about, man. For whatever reason, more of their roster hasn't come up in my mind. Robert Williams. I really like Robert Williams as a piece. He's a solution piece for a lot of teams. So I don't think you necessarily want to let him go for any reason. If you're the Boston Celtics, you keep him. Because it's just like anything else. You remove your shot blocker, the first thing you're going to be looking for is your shot blocker. So could I feel a lot better with a player that's a bit more sturdy in place as it pertains to injuries? Absolutely. And I don't think that you can ever expect Tom Lord to play more than 50, 55 games. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all you need from him. But Al Horford's aging. I don't know that you really did what you need to do to make sure that you have that center position. Maybe you got somebody in the draft. I don't think so. Even though on the draft night I thought Najee went to the Celtics, he actually ended up going to the Charlotte Hornets. But they're going to need some more front court help next to Porzingis, who's not going to be likely staying healthy all season long. and Robert Williams, of course, who doesn't tend to find himself as healthy as he needs to be most of the time. Um, so that's what I'm thinking about in regards to the Boston Celtics. They could be in play for a center. Maybe a Bismack Biyombo or something wouldn't be bad for them to try to pick up. Um, yeah, that makes sense to me. They're going to need another guy. Are they still trotting out Blake Griffin? Did they re-sign him? You got that is not a front court player that I think should be going into this season for them. I don't think so. I barely think Al Horford should still be there. If he still has some trade value, you probably want to move Al Horford this year. And how many more years is he gonna still do what he does at that level? I want to get ahead of that. If this is gonna be the first year he's not that guy, I want to get something for Al Horford. That's how I think. No. I don't want a guy to I don't want day one of him being washed to ever be seen by my fans when we have needs. But I do think Al Horford is a fantastic basketball player who's probably going to go in the Hall of Fame. I really do believe that. And if he does have a great season, he's an asset, obviously. He's obviously an asset to the team. So for me, it's just about getting ahead of guys' retirement time. I don't want to be the dude that's losing value at all. Again, when I have needs as a team. So, yeah, that's where my head is going, man. The Boston freaking Celtics. They're absolute and utter ops. I don't know why. But that is who I've been thinking about this morning because they have a specific style. They haven't traded Jaylen Brown. And I think it's a good chance he's a part of a sign and trade. Pretty damn certain that's what this is starting to shape up to look like. To where? I don't know. But I do like him next to Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. I really do. I like him over there. And I like Anthony Simons and Dame Lillard in Missoula's system, even though that's too much salary going that way. That's too much salary going that way. But that would be ideal. If they can get both of them dudes, that would be ideal, honestly. So, yeah, man. I'm not saying Dame to Boston. In fact, I'm thinking Dame's saying no to Boston, to be very clear. But I don't. As I told you guys yesterday, I would call my bluff on Dame's people. As it pertains to them only wanting to go to Miami, I'd call a bluff, send him somewhere else. Now, if that somewhere else would be willing to take him, which I don't know if any team would be willing to do that, I think that's the point. But if I'm Portland, I'm still trying to send him somewhere else. If they can give me a better return than what I'm getting from Miami. It wouldn't be out of spite. And I don't know Kyrie Irving, the Dallas bull crap, but just trying to get the best return, literally. I would do that. Because at the end of the day, Dame Lillard is a fantastic player, but he signed a 4-year deal, and that's not easy to move at cost for a player his age, as we already mentioned. So it's not the easiest thing to just simply say, okay, let's move Dame Lillard to Miami and get over with this thing, because now when you take back a terrible return, you got to live with it. You got to live with that. Your team's not going to be very good, and you run the risk of losing what you have. Ain't gonna mess around and end up having Scoot not really wanting to be there, Shaedon not really want to be there, and moving forward with Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant. Like, that's worst case scenario. All of that doesn't have to be like that if you get the right return for Dame. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that for wherever it may be found. And Minnesota's a team. Philadelphia also makes sense. New York's probably going to want to do something like that, even though we've already talked about them and their pick situation and how they should probably want to keep those. But it's just like anything else. Once you get there, you know what you're in for. The Eastern Conference isn't exactly going to be kind for guards at all. They do got some good teams that have great defensive guards. So, a team that comes to mind also could probably get involved in this trade is Chicago. Chicago can get involved in this. I don't know if they're going to take back Dame necessarily, but they do have the movable pieces to make it something that maybe teams will want to get involved in with them. You consider DeMar DeRozan's contract, Alex Caruso, of course, Zach LaVine, even though I'm pretty certain at this point Zach LaVine would rather stay in Chicago, and I think Chicago's probably trying to find a way to justify paying him that rather than moving him. I think the fans want to keep Zach LaVine too. I've seen a lot of support for Zach LaVine on Bulls IG. So it's one of those situations where I don't think the Bulls probably benefit from moving Zach as much as they probably benefit from moving everything around him. Honestly, that's where I'm at with that. A 180 from where I was at with the Zach LaVine contracts last year. Even though I don't necessarily believe in Zach as a winning player, he's going to be a fantastic, lethal scorer for as long as he continues to have his athleticism. And so that's something you can't buy. Even though he's had the knee injuries and stuff like that, he's still elite. He's an elite, high level athlete. So with that, coupled with where he's at in his career, his development, you want him on your team. I'm not a big fan of his decision making a lot of times. I think he kind of gets tunnel vision. It can really hurt his team a lot of times. Sometimes disappear in the big game, stuff like that. He kind of has James Harden, Paul George syndrome, where he just don't be there in the big moments. But at the same time, he's also somebody throughout the regular season, if he's healthy, he's going to help you get a lot of wins if you built correctly around him. And so he's a lethal piece on a high contract. And I think he's somebody who can help Dame get to where he's going by being a part of that trade if the Bulls just be simply willing to include him in a trade. I just don't know that they actually have any interest in doing that. So keep an eye on the Bulls. Keep an eye on them. They do need to do something. They do have a win now type of timeline, but they also had that Lonzo Ball contract eating away at them. Now I know they got some type of health provision, some type of health amount that came their way, but it was after the free agency pool dried up. So it was like they couldn't really get anything with that money. I was listening to Kenny For Real talk about his team. He's a Bulls fan, and he was essentially saying that he's not ready to give up on Patrick Williams, and revealed to me that Patrick Williams is only 21 years old. I didn't know that. I thought Patrick Williams probably be upwards to like 23 right now. But if Pat Will is still 21, I am not letting him go. Yeah, his development ain't going that great, but then you have to define development when you consider a guy's 21. This guy ain't developed till he's about 24, 25, so it's like, yo, forget how many years he's been in the league. If he's only this age, he's already shown flashes that he's really good at age 20. You know what I mean? So the consistency will come. And the Bulls have just been blah the whole time, and he's been hurt also. So it's like, I'm not so sure. I'm not pretty high on Patrick Williams right now as a prospect that can still get a lot better, maybe even develop into what it is you thought he would become when drafted. Now, granted, he was drafted earlier than most thought he should, but he has a skill set that makes it make sense. And we had seen that work in the past with other players like Sean Marion, different players that we've never heard of but get picked early at the small forward position. Turn out to be fantastic players. So I think Patrick Williams still has a chance to be that. Could he use a change of scenery? I think so. But also look at him and Kobe White as the future of the Bulls. Dylon Terry, they have some young talent behind all of that stuff that they got that maybe they should just kind of keep hanging around and kind of increase those guys and use them as the beginning stages of an imminent rebuild. So that when those players in year 3, year 4, and these contracts are out, you got them playing at their best, and you can also put a win later type of team around those three that fits tomorrow, which is what I think would benefit the Bulls ultimately. But they don't have to push DeMar DeRozan out the door. They don't have to push Zach LaVine out the door to expedite the process of those kids' upside. I don't think the upside is that to where you do that, but they can be great role players for you so long as you continue to groom them. So that's what I think makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls. I'm not necessarily moving any of those three. And so that's what I'm thinking is Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and of course Dylon Terry. And I think Ayo Dosunmu is a player I think they should re-sign. Because he can help you in a lot of combo areas, and he's only going to get better. And he has the height and the length to fit and be switchable in this league. And so I know they have enough of that in Caruso and DeMar and all these other different players that are on the team that play that position. But I don't think it would be bad for them to bring the hometown kid, Ayo Dosunmu, back to the roster and see if he can continue to develop in that Bulls rotation. Because even though they don't have the biggest role for him, they have a lot of injury issues throughout the course of the regular season, so you never know who's going to be able to step up and play well. And I've seen him do a lot, again, combo stuff statistically. 8 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. It's like, yo, when a guy's capable of doing that, you want to harness the good that he can do so he can get those intangibles down there for you. And so I'm a believer. I don't know how much upside he has. I don't know how good of an executing shot maker he can be, and that's big in this league right now. But when a guy has athleticism and a body and ability to, just kind of run like the wind, good height, I just think that should be considered. And he has point guard abilities, kind of ball handling abilities. I think he should be considered. And he does things on the defensive end as well. So I know he didn't have a good season last year. A lot of what we're talking about is based on his rookie season when he had a good start. But I just think he's still a project just like the others. And when you talk about the Chicago Bulls and the ever-changing nature of their roster with players going in and out, in and out, in and out at the same position, it's kind of hard to see a consistency about his development, especially last year. And I think the absence of Lonzo Ball really hurt a lot of what was going on down there because he's such a cerebral offensive passer, floor general, and three-point shooter at this point. And then, of course, defensively, he's one of the best defensive players on the planet at the point guard position. So when you don't have him out there, it really does take a lot away from your overall cohesiveness and the ability to be a good team. When he was out there, they were one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. You know, they really were, because he made them come together. He made it all make sense. He kept continuity on the floor at all times. So that's the major absence there, is Lonzo imminently being basically semi-retired right now. So it's like, without seeing a path to him playing at least for another 2 years, honestly, 2 years, you just don't expect the Chicago Bulls will be able to make up the difference in him being paid that huge contract right before this injury took place. And I didn't think it was a bad contract so long as he stayed healthy, but I thought he was a bad investment to stay healthy. And so you just got to live with that, man. Because he was starting to have issues like that well before he signed that contract. So you like seeing him get paid, but the Bulls just probably shouldn't have been the team to pay him. And we're seeing it. We're seeing that now. So that's how that goes, man. The Bulls are just kind of stuck. They're in an unfortunate position where they do really need Lonzo Ball to be a contender, and because they don't have him, they are not. But they're still moving like they want to be a contender, so they look silly to me. they just look silly. But it is what it is. They're trying to keep that stance going, and maybe something great happens, and Lonzo feels good enough to play before the playoffs somehow. I don't see it, but maybe they get lucky. I don't think that's possible. They've probably already ruled them out, so ignore that. But these are the type of things that you need to hope for if you're the Bulls, because they really don't have enough, and they really are reluctant to trade what it is that I hope them get it. So that's my little Bulls spiel, man. They got to do better. And so that's pretty much where I'm at, man. I didn't think I'd turn this into a 41-minute video when I started it, but I told you how my brain goes. It just is what it is. I'm going to find a way to make content regardless. My name is BDO44. I thank you all for watching.